Here are a few things that can go wrong with Automagical Forms, or also just tips to help you run better. So one of the first things that you notice is when you open up Automagical Forms, if you have a file already clicked, it'll run. But if you don't, it'll show you this menu. One of the main important things that I found that many users have is these quick access files. When you click on them, nothing happens because they're not really files. If I wanted to run on this one, I would have to scroll down here to under the files and actually click on it, and then it'll run. And so you'll see when it starts to run, it comes over here. So if you're clicking on the quick access and nothing is happening, it's just because it's a different type of object and it won't run on there. So that's one thing. Don't click on the quick access, click on the actual file below. Another thing is once you do click on something, the first time you're going to need to request access permission. And this gives Automagical Forms access to that file's content. We're very big about privacy, and we don't want to have any of your personal identifiable information. So we only access information that you want us to. So you click allow, and that gives us information about the file. And from there, we can do some things. So another thing is sometimes you have a file that's a scanned PDF. And if I do the Automagical Forms doesn't find any questions. It'll take a little bit too. So sometimes bigger files that are scanned take too long for Google Drive add-ons to run. Google only lets us run for 30 seconds. So sometimes it might ask you for more help. So here it shows you a picture of what it looks like. But then you see at the bottom, it didn't find any questions. So that's because this file was scanned. And so Automagical Forms is looking for words, and really it's just pictures, even though the pictures have words that we could see. So if you click on the back button to go to your menus and your options, you can tell Automagical Forms that this PDF was scanned. And if you click refresh, it'll refresh the whole process. And now it'll tell it that there's pictures, but it'll look at a different format and find the words in those pictures. So you just have to help Automagical Forms out a little bit. The AI only knows a few specific things to do, and we're constantly teaching it to recognize questions more and more. And so you just got to give it a little bit of help sometimes. So now that we've led it on the correct path, telling it that it's a scanned PDF, you can see now it actually finds most of these questions. You'll see that sometimes it's a little bit out of order because it has some trouble with two columns. But for the most part, I can just click Create Form, and I can move those questions around once they're built in the Google form. It usually does a pretty good job of identifying all the multiple choice and the short answer, but sometimes you need to give it a little bit of a help afterwards and edit it. Once it goes through and builds it, it still has that 30-second time process. So sometimes it does take a little longer than 30 seconds to build the form. So that is one limitation that you have to, it'll tell you when it's running out of time, and it'll ask you to give it more time. Or if it finishes, it'll show you that and just tell you to open the form. And here you can see that it comes up with the questions that you thought it did, and you might want to rearrange them, and then it'll be more what you were hoping for.